Good morning, everybody. It's Brian Caprice from Keep Trading Simple. Welcome to this week's Monday morning market breakdown. So, temperatures are changing. Saw a little highlights of some people getting snow on the West Coast. I'll actually be heading to Vancouver this week, and I think the average temp this week is in the low 40s. So, fall is definitely here. The seasons have changed. Put away the flip-flops and the bikinis and get the jackets out. That's kind of what we have going on. So, happy that you guys are with me this week. Little funny story real quick. I actually had a computer blow up. I mean, that thing is still possible. Blue screen of death last week. So a couple of my slides are going to be a little bit off. I'm going to use a different charting platform this week. But again, the analysis stays the same. So if anybody gets lost, don't forget on the last slide, I will shoot you guys my information. So if you have any questions, you're more than welcome to, again, shoot me an email and I'll do my best to answer it as best as I can. So with that being said, let's just jump into things this week. For those of you that are new here, welcome. All what I just said probably made no sense to you. For those returning, you guys understand kind of, what rebuilding a trading computer is like. Having decks missing, having, brokerage software and charting platforms missing. It led to a pretty fun weekend, as well as, had some lacrosse practice. We only got 2 weeks till tournament, and the kids are not ready yet. So yeah, we did some laps yesterday. But anyway, guys, just so you know, I am the president and CEO of Keep Trading Simple. And what we do over there, and the reason I'm telling you this is basically so you understand where my analysis comes from in when I'm talking about a setup or something inside of a chart. I want you to know kind of what our philosophy is and where kind of my trading history came from, right? So I started really back right around the tech bubble, back in 2000, 2001 time period is when I started. And started actually with stocks and going into traditional options, and then eventually kind of, after years of, that and currencies, and then eventually I found binary options as well. I've seen a lot of different ups, downs, sideways, all kinds of crazy things in the market. So got quite a lot of experience looking at markets, really fell in love with the currency market. It's where I specialize in. A couple years ago, I ended up joining forces with a company, and I really, in learning their methods, I really realized real fast that it doesn't matter what I'm trading. A chart is a chart is a chart is a chart. So I specialize in currencies. It's what I look at the most, but I also can do oil. I can do indices. I can do individual stocks. My analysis doesn't necessarily matter. So some people will say, well, what about this? Well, it doesn't matter. If two people are trading it, our methodology works on it. That's just how it works. All right. So I've created a number of trading systems that I'm quite proud of. Two of them in particular are Nadex based, a 30-minute trader program, as well as 5-minute binary courses. And those are for people with full-time jobs. And the reason I say that, again, maybe your full-time job is a trader, but you could also add Nadex into that. I'm not a believer in sitting in front of a computer for 16 hours a day looking at charts, okay? We have something called technology. Use it, okay? There are platforms where you do your analysis on your computer and you can set an alert there, and it will go off on your phone when you're in the car or on the subway or at work. Use technology. There's no reason to sit and stare at a computer. They actually say that sitting is the new cigarette, basically, that this is going to kill more people than cigarettes eventually, just sitting in front of a computer all day. I stay quite busy, and I do that on purpose. Okay, there's no reason for me to sit here. I can still trade, and again, that's where my methodology comes from. It's a lot of if this, then that. That makes sense, right? I'm not about jumping in saying, oh, there's this, this and this, and you'll see I don't even have indicators. I have a lot of lines and little boxes, but I don't have indicators on my charts, and that's done for a reason. Okay, I did spend a bit of time inside of the advisory division of one of the big three banks as well. Being on the inside, you get a different kind of look and a different kind of opinion on really kind of what the quote experts are doing and what the experts believe. I was very lucky and blessed to actually, after that, meet and actually work with a lot of former floor traders, market makers, and I got the inside look about what happens in the markets and what their opinions are. I actually have gotten to sit down and trade with a market maker that used to work for, if you guys remember that company, Scottrade. Yeah, he was a market maker over there, and hearing the way that he looked at a chart and what he used to make money trading Scottrade's accounts, pretty spectacular. It was amazing, and I learned a lot from it. And again, that's the information I'm sharing with you guys now. Some of that knowledge. Besides being a trader and educator, obviously my dad. I actually take care of the little one in the picture, Jen. She is now 16 months old. She's at the phase. She doesn't say anything yet. She just points and grunts. And then there's obviously the twin boys. They are 9 going on 19, I believe. If you've ever dealt with little ones, you know how they can be. So I stay quite busy, and then again, running the company. So if this, then that. If you take nothing else out of today, remember that, and you guys will be golden. So before I jump into any charts or talk anything about news, I do have to cover an index risk disclaimer. You guys will notice that this is new. Not much different information, but I'm going to read it to make sure that everybody fully understands it. Okay, trading on Nadex involves risk and may not be appropriate for all investors. Trading can be volatile, and investors risk losing the cost to enter the transaction, including fees. The information presented within this site is for information and education purposes only and should not be considered an offer or solicitation to buy or sell any financial instrument on Nadex or elsewhere. Now, any trading decision you make is solely your responsibility and at your own risk. Basically, don't trade with money you can't afford to lose. Past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results. Nadex contracts are based on underlying asset classes, including Forex, stock index futures, and commodity futures. And Nadex is a registered trademark of the IG group. Okay. Biggest thing to get from any risk disclaimer, guys, is understanding that trading involves risk. Don't use the milk money, right? For lack of a better word. But nothing else has changed. Remember this as well. Again, one sentence in here that's a little bit different too is, investors risk losing the cost to enter the transaction, including the fee. Okay, you can't lose more than what the cost to enter the transaction is. I know that may be a bit confusing. All right. So with that being said, let's dive into the news of the week. So every week, guys, I do the top 3. What I would say top 3 major market moves. Now, these are not the biggest market movers. They're not guaranteed to be market movers, but these are 3 things that I see as giving a little bit of extra attention to. Again, things that you should be aware of. Times that I believe that we have the potential for something that is market moving that is actionable. Okay, there's a lot of news during the week. I don't have a crystal ball. I can't see what it is going to be, but based off my experience, these are the 3 that I feel are going to be a little bit bigger. Okay, actually, that last one, it didn't save on me there. I'll change that when we get down to it. First one, obviously, we're not talking about May, so I will delete number 3. Number 1, GDP for the pound. GDP for the pound, it's one of those things. The pound right now is going through a period of time that Brexit is basically dominating everything right now, right? With that being said, the pound doesn't necessarily have a lot of news releases right now. All eyes are what's going to happen with Brexit. We're approaching a deadline. One day it's going to be a hard exit. The next day it's not going to be a hard exit. So it's really kind of going back and forth. And then the European Union is like, well, we'll accept this and maybe we'll give you an extension. And then, Great Britain can't figure out if they want an extension, and the Euro says, hey, we're going to give you an extension anyway, kind of like they have any say in them leaving or not leaving. So it's kind of one of those things. It's, they're a little bit all over the place. But something like GDP is a big number, okay? Now, I understand it's 4:30 in the morning is super early for some people, but that's totally fine, okay? Actually, this is supposed to be CAD. I'll change it as we, whoops, right there. So with that being said, if you're able to get up, the GDP number is very important. It'll kind of explain where the economy is going, and gives really a lot of different information. Actually, you know what? Let's see, make sure that's right. October 3rd, yeah, that's right. Okay. So I think, in my opinion, I think that's going to be, really a great trading opportunity for us early on in the morning. Okay. There we go. Let me change this real quick to 8:30, and then we are good. All right. Number 2 will be the U.S. CPI data on Thursday morning. Now, CPI is important for a couple different reasons, but the Consumer Price Index, anytime you see in any type of news, the I, okay, you're talking about inflation indexes, those are gauges of kind of how the economy is going. Now, last week we got some surprise numbers. Everybody's been talking about how bad everything is going, right? You're talking about, oh, we're going to a recession, it's going to be bad. And then this number, manufacturing number, was down, but then all of a sudden unemployment dropped. It's kind of one of those things that, you don't really know what's going to happen until really after it happens, right? So why that's important this week is because, again, Thursday morning is not typically a hotbed of news events. If you're looking, and again, I'll scroll through the entire week in a second. If you're looking earlier in the week, Powell is speaking pretty much every day. On Thursday, he's not speaking, nor is he Friday. And it's kind of one of those things. There's not really a whole lot of other data, obviously, besides the pound number early in the morning. But for the U.S., that number will typically dictate what happens for the day. So it's not only a currency release, but it's also kind of an indices release as well. Okay, now it is a rather small number. I'll show that to you in a second. I'm going to pull the website in. Having something that's forecast to be 0.1%, you're not talking, if it's a 0.2%, it's considered a big miss and will kind of be market moving. Okay. Let me bring this. Whoops, forgot the plate. All right, now number 3. Okay, that's the one I just had to type in there, and I apologize. The formatting is a little tiny bit off. There we go. Trying to make that as best as I can. All right, so it would be Friday morning. Okay, 8:30 in the morning. CAD unemployment change in the unemployment rate. Now, obviously, the United States unemployment rate just dropped down by 0.2. It's back down to what, 3.5 now, I guess. Obviously, for Canada, they have a smaller economy, but it's also a big figure to figure out what their unemployment rate's going to be. What makes it interesting and makes it on the top 3 is because this week we don't really have any other U.S.-based data at 8:30 on Friday. Normally, there's kind of a joint U.S./Canadian release like there was last week. This week, there's not. Okay. So with that being said, this gives us a potential to have a pretty nice little bounce in the dollar CAD. All right. Again, if you're not used to playing it, again, it's no different than any other chart out there. It won't have as much effect on our U.S. indices, but it obviously will affect the Canadian dollar. So get in there and look at that one. Again, for an early morning release. Just be cautious with that by noon, that probably won't move as much. Okay. So again, it may come in exactly as expected and there won't be movement. But again, a lot of times it's wrong, and I'll show that to you. All right, so with that being said, let me drag in Forex Factory now. All right, so you guys know that Forex Factory is one of the multiple websites that I actually do use quite often. I always make sure that I do set the, we'll leave it on there, it's fine. I use the scanner function down here, and again, I have it on weekly view to explain things. Obviously, going in today at 1 p.m., Powell is speaking. Now, he's speaking multiple days this week. Any of those actually gives the potential for sudden, violent movement. And I say violent because it never seems like it goes in the direction of the trade that you are in. So that's just how it kind of works. But he is speaking multiple days this week. Any single one of those days, you don't know what the question is going to be or what his response is going to be, but they all have the potential to be market moving. Now, besides that, there's not a whole lot going on, but I wouldn't necessarily expect today to be a gigantic or a very fast or volatile market moving day unless he says something. If you guys look at the top, one of the scanners that I do use here on this website that's included, I use this 24-hour pip change, and it kind of gives me an idea of how much the currency market is moving. As you can see in 24 hours, although yes, it is Sunday into Monday, not a whole lot of stuff has moved except the pound. Okay, I don't expect these numbers to be huge. I don't think they're going to hit their ATR for the day unless Powell says something about raising the interest rates or confirming that they're going to raise them twice the rest of the year, and what his overall concerns are. Now, with the unemployment rate coming down, he may not. We'll see. I don't know. Kind of raises some questions. So be cautious about that. Now, and that's at 1 p.m. Tomorrow, same thing. He's speaking again at 1. Again, a lot more going on. This Westpac consumer sentiment is over in Aussie super late in the day. And there's some core PPI data. Again, PPI is one of those things that bounces back and forth between a high news release and a medium news release. But because there's nothing else in the morning, obviously at 8:30, that can give us kind of a pop or a drop in the markets. Again, that can kind of set the tone as well for what the day is going to be like. Okay, at least early morning trading. If this data, PPI is bad or core PPI is bad, that could really kind of, kind of let us foreshadow what's going to happen early morning. All right. Going into Wednesday, okay, we have this Eurogroup meeting all day. Eurogroup meetings, again, it's marked as a red. It's a big deal when the whole European Union comes together to meet. I think, again, we're getting closer and closer to this Brexit deadline. Every day we see one news headline, but then the next day we see something that completely counteracts it. So there's really, until the final papers are signed and they leave, there's really no true way to figure out exactly what's going to happen in my eyes. But again, when they're having a meeting like this, there is potential for some crazy movement, right? So we'll see how that kind of unfolds. And then at 10:30, we have crude oil, okay? Crude oil has been one of those things. Again, I'll click this for the past history. This has been pretty interesting to watch. Why? Because supposedly 5% of the world production was stopped, just halted. And what do we see oil doing? We saw oil retrace not only all the way back to where it was prior move, but then it did a parabolic retracement all the way back down and has actually gone below right now. Okay, so if you guys missed that parabolic retracement webinar, I think we're going to end up doing another one. Crude oil, this is a perfect example, right? But what have we seen? We've seen supply and then more supply and then more supply. So we are building supply, even though the world is producing less right now. So I'm not actually, I'm one of those, I'm not necessarily a conspiracy theorist, but I'm wondering, did the drones even do anything? And was this just a way to jack oil for a little bit? I mean, who knows? We haven't heard anything else about it since, right? Have no idea. But again, oil's been an interesting player. And, for a lot of you, if you are new to Nadex, a lot of you will either gravitate towards, I'm going to trade currencies on Nadex, or I'm going to trade indices, right? Because I'm a futures trader, so I'm going to trade indices. A lot of people forget about the commodities. Go over there, trade crude oil. Great place. No different than anything else. Do your regular setups. Again, this is a news release, and again, it's considered high impact every week on Wednesday morning, okay? Then 11 right after that is when Powell's speaking. So get your oil money, and then watch out for Powell, okay? On Tuesday as well, I gave you that warning, and again, it was on the slide. Watch out for FOMC meeting notes, okay? Now, I think a lot of people know what's going to happen next. I don't know that they're going to be like, yep, we're going to do 2 drops. That would be pretty rare for them. But because of what we see here, I think it's going to, I think there's going to be some type of, he's going to say something that's going to be market moving. I didn't put it as one of the big releases this week because I feel like with him speaking 2 days before, I feel like he's going to slip and the market's already going to know. But you always have to be wary and watchful when you see FOMC meeting notes, okay? Just FYI, all right? Oh, something was blinking that there was a question, but I can't see the question. All right, so on Thursday, okay? Thursday is a day that is actually packed with a lot of different things. One, GDP early morning, okay? If you're a West Coaster, it's going to be hard for you. If you're an East Coaster, you may have to wake up a little bit early. But what I like about this one is it's not only GDP, but also manufacturing production. They kind of jump those 2 on top of it. And both of them are picked to be lower than what they were previous. Okay, they're both forecast to be 0 and 0.1, and they were both forecast to be 0.3. Last time is what the previous one was. So they're already expecting bad. They're expecting gloom and doom. So the market's going to prepare for that gloom and doom number. And if it's worse, then it's like, man. But it also gives us the potential to the upside, give us some pound strength, which we've actually been able to see a bit lately. All right. Then we have European monetary policy meeting notes. You don't really see a lot of European releases here. So I think this one will also be interesting. Again, talking about the ECB going into recession. So that will be important to watch as well. And then again, that's piggybacked right by the CPI data that we had on the top 3. Now, here's what I'm talking about CPI data. You can see this. Again, it doesn't miss often. Okay, not as much, but you see that when it does miss, it only has to miss by a little bit. Now, the core number is what some people focus on more. Okay, as you can see, core is missing all the time. Okay, it misses a lot more. And again, they keep forecasting, and it keeps, for a while they were forecasting 0.2, and it was coming in lower, and then all of a sudden it was coming in higher. So we'll see where it kind of comes in at. But the core number is what a lot more, what traders and what the market tends to be focusing on. Okay. So again, that'll be on Thursday. Going into Friday, you can see same thing. Here's that CAD number, right? You can see the unemployment has been kind of, when it jumps, it jumps and misses by, a fair amount. So, we'll see. I mean, last time it was, again, it's forecast. There's where its previous number was. They don't typically do a forecast on it. But again, unemployment change and unemployment rate. This is basically their non-farm payroll data coming in all at one time. All right. So that's the week at a glance. So with that said, let's look at some charts. Okay, now for this, I know you guys are used to seeing my dark charts, but I'm going to have to pull some light charts in. Okay. As I said, one of the things that I lost inside of that was the charting software. So there's going to be some more lines and some things that you guys don't recognize. Don't worry about it. I'll explain it as we go through. So where we are in the Aussie, and what I'm going to do is I'm not doing all the pairs. I'm only going to do the NAICS-based pairs. Aussie yen, first one on the top though. You guys can see the Aussie yen actually, based off of Friday and today, has just actually entered a trade setup that we had talked about. I believe I talked about it with you guys as well, but with my group, I've talked about it, that it was a zone that we had hit prior, and we were waiting for kind of a momentum breakout to the downside, but we were going to hold that zone as valid. You can see on the daily, what it's doing is pushing. It actually had a little bit of a bounce off this tiny zone, right? This little level here. Bounced up, re-grabbed the orders, and is on its way back down again. So, you got to be a bit cautious. It is, quite a bit into the move already. And you can see we have that level of basing, the wicks, a lot of indecision down here. And that's what we're kind of approaching back down to. One thing I'm a bit cautious with this pair, again, is we're starting to get back here to this kind of demand zone down here at 71 kind of 50-ish range on the daily, okay? Now, we have about 50 pips to go from where we are right now. we got to go through this level, and we got to kind of break through what we saw, what turned it around here. But it's got about 50 pips of movement, and it's most likely going to have some news to be able to do it. Now, again, looking for the week, you don't see a whole lot of Aussie news releases this week. We have Westpac, and that's basically it. And this business confidence. There's not really a lot of Australian news that really can act as a catalyst. Again, this is next Monday. Now, next Monday will be great for the monetary policy notes, but it's pretty anemic right now as far as big news releases for the week. So be a bit cautious of this pair. I feel that this pair will be more dominated by, most likely, probably it's going to be more dominated by the yen news, basically meaning that the U.S. stock market is what's going to be moving this pair around. Right where it is right now, obviously you're not going to enter the trade or the position right now. It's getting pretty close down here to where profits are. Again, this was a Sunday night setup, Friday and a Sunday. So just be a bit cautious with it. Go across the little brother over to the Aussie dollar. Now I see Aussie dollar had traveled all the way up, and again, this was on Friday, and then Sunday we were already gapping in the opposite direction. So again, this is another standard play. Very similar. Again, this one had already pushed lower on the daily. Okay, it had rallied back up again to grab more orders, and again, what did it do? It went up and it grabbed fresh sell orders. Okay, fresh sell orders. Okay, this candle that we had before really messed up a lot of the analysis last week. So when all this was happening over here, we were just waiting. And this is what I'm talking about when we say, we're waiting for an if this, then that. Okay, we are waiting for price to come up here all week, right? You guys can see this happened on Friday, and then the market ended. It got super, super close, and then it gapped down, okay? But again, this is a gap strategy that we typically trade when it gaps in the opposite direction. So we ended up getting the trade setup that we wanted. It just took a little bit longer. And again, this is why we do an if this, then that. And again, the way that this one worked, you may say, well, what do you mean? I mean, it gapped. You didn't know it was going to gap. And you're right. I did not know it was going to gap down here, okay? But it ended up, the same exact trade happened for us because we had a different strategy and we knew when the markets were going to open. So we were already short-minded when it came all the way back up to the sell zone. On Friday, it didn't get close. This green dotted line was the trigger. Never got an alert, knew the market shut down, and then what happened? Again, the trade became a little bit different once Sunday night opened. It came back up, hit our trigger, and then is now off to the races, and it's approaching the profit target down here. So on this one, I feel this is going to be similar. There is a lot of news this week for the U.S., though, with Powell speaking a lot. If anything is mentioned about inflation, okay, if you hear the word inflation, the first thing people are going to think is gold, right? Because gold is the hedge for inflation. Well, gold, the Aussie dollar is the proxy for gold. Okay, so it will affect this pair a bit. At this point, I am definitely a bit more bearish. Okay, I do believe that we are going to come back down and test these lows down at the 66.80 range. But again, you're only talking about, 50 to 60 pips down, to the downside. And then again, I'll zoom out on the daily. You guys can see it's been a long time since price has been way here, right? I mean, this is back down to 2015. Okay, it's been a long, long time since we've been this low, right, in the Aussie dollar. And again, I can see price continuing to go a bit lower. All right. So jumping across, let's look at Euro Pound. Again, Euro Pound will be kind of like all eyes on. Now, here's one of the things we've been looking at this one. You guys will see this one last week ended up chopping down. It came back up again. It's kind of going all over the place. It really necessarily hasn't left this area. It's just really kind of stuck inside of this zone. And you guys can see, look over here on this daily. Again, it is rallying up. We are having a, again, the pound is going down. There's a lot of indecision. European Union is going to do this, it's going to do that. But this is a pretty kind of, yeah, you could say it's a channel sideways, but just take the basically last week, right? You can see everything is basically stuck. And again, there's a little tiny thing. Here's where we were last week. We went from here. Here, I'll make it longer so you guys can see it a little bit better. There, and I'll change this off the dotted line. I'll make this solid, and we'll make it, let's do purple. You guys both see that, okay? So there's that zone, and then there's the top side. So, we've really been just stuck inside of that kind of tiny, tiny range for a week, okay? You're talking about 35 pips top to bottom. Now, why that's important is this. You guys can see the ATR. It is tanking very, very fast. The ATR right now is actually, whoops, I guess I can't shrink. There we go. The ATR is down to 55 or 54.6. You can see it was up here at 70 and is dropping, which is a sign that, again, people are not really sure what the heck is going on right now with this, with this pair. I think a lot of people, again, are waiting for more of a kind of Brexit conclusion. Again, this is nice movement. This is what it typically does. And look at it. It's kind of coiled in. It's like a spring, right? So again, I think people are really kind of like, what do we do? And that's what leading us to this kind of bounce, right? Here, down, up, sideways. Again, another parabolic retracement trade right here, this large extended range candle. And in fact, here was one down, here is the other, and back up again. So actually two different examples just in this one chart of those parabolic retracements. And again, right now we're sucked into this kind of selling zone up top. So it really wasn't necessarily a trade. This kind of burst through was actually hitting a profit target. You can see that was late Friday. This is Friday at 10:30. Market closed here, but again, we don't necessarily have a trend. And then boom, Sunday up, down, and it's just kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place. So my recommendation on this one would be to use this one as a proxy to figure out, is the euro stronger or is the pound stronger, and then trade that against the US dollar. Okay, there was I'll show you in a second, there was two nice trade setups from last week where we had dollar strength. Actually, I guess it was dollar weakness, and we traded that against the euro dollar because the euro was the stronger of those two currency pairs. Okay, using that extra oomph to kind of stick it to the US dollar. All right. All right, so that's all we got on this one. Again, use this one as a proxy. Euro yen, same thing. Basically flatline for a couple days. Hasn't really done much. Look at this ATR. This ATR was from 87 and it's dropped all the way down to 62.9. I mean, it's running out of steam. Okay. One thing we've been watching for in this one, again, you guys can see this green triangle. I was waiting for some type of a breakout to the downside, but I really needed it to clear this daily zone. And we talked about this last week as well. It needs to clear this zone of buyers. And again, it's at the very, very bottom, right? But man, this is a lot of just, again, there's Friday candles in here, but not a lot of movement, right? We've basically, we came down to this bottom here on Thursday, Friday, Sunday, and now we're in the Monday candle. It just stuck, okay? When something stops like this, I'm looking for trend. With Nadex, the biggest thing that we worry about in Nadex is that expiration time. Okay, when the market runs out of trend and runs out of momentum, that expiration time is sitting there going tick, tick, tick. So you just got to be very careful with this. Okay, this is sideways movement. I said if we could get some clearance, again, if I could get some clearance, a momentum breakout to the downside and create some white space, and again, this may look rather large. Again, it was just drawn. Unfortunately, the candles are not moving a ton. That's why it does look huge. But I'm looking for some type of clearance below this level down here at 117.23. I want some white space below, and then I'd be looking to get short. But until that time, it's sideways. I'm looking at other things. Looking at euro dollar had a couple really what I would consider choice setups. Now on this one, we are inside of a zone that I am interested in, potentially looking for shorts in. And here's why. Okay, I saw basing here before. Again, it came off of a zone. Last time it was this high up at 110.18. It pushed down, it went sideways, and then wham, kind of launched off of it. So that's been an area that I've been looking for shorts. Okay, but unfortunately, I've been unable to actually find an entry. I have not gotten the signal that I needed to get in. You guys can see this one little spike up and down kind of messed up the analysis a bit. And again, this was our original kind of setup. We were looking for kind of a repeat of this, and it happened very fast. It hit here, it came up and triggered, and then was out in the same exact candle. Okay, and that was Friday morning's news. Okay, that was non-farm on Friday. Since that time, it basically has retraced and it has stayed right, more or less right inside of this area. Okay, we had a little bit of movement from Sunday night, right, into Monday. Okay, the Sunday candle was right here is where the print was, and it kind of came up, just stayed, went down, and then it's pushed back up again. So haven't quite seen where this one is going to start for the week. It is sitting up in an area, so I am more bearish biased on this one, but don't necessarily have an entry. It's basically because this one on Friday had already taken it out. Okay, it's basically a repeat of this. Okay, we had this over here, and this was our target to the downside. Okay, so again, it was basically done in one candle, entry, exit. This one didn't quite reach. Okay, this is also a Sunday night trade. Okay, had you taken this one, there's a couple different ways. My guys know that there's a confirmation entry on this one, but same thing. We were so close, it turned on us and then started to move away. It was a third, actually, hit of this area. One thing I am warning, and again, my guys know this, whenever an area is hit, typically when it hits the third time is when you start getting nervous because there's only so many orders in there. We're starting to hit number 4, so I believe this area is going to start getting pierced a bit more if we don't go all the way through. But then again, I mentioned here, 110.20 is kind of an area that I'm looking for. All right, jumping across the pound yen. Very similar situation. What do we got here? Look at this. Look at this movement. It's crazy. No, it's not. right? Look at the bodies. Okay, we've had down and backs, some spiking back and forth, but it's been very, very small on the daily. And it's hitting an area right now over here, not right now, but it's pretty close to this 130, 113, where we saw price pull back, and that was a launching point to break through a zone and go higher. So we're kind of sitting right on top of it. We haven't been able to actually get to it. Again, this one wasn't really trending going into Friday. It was more or less flat. Okay, it did gap all the way down, go back up and touch it, and then launch its way down. Gave us, again, somewhat of a Sunday, parabolic retracement. But again, it was just kind of reacting to news. I don't know that the zone is necessarily tradable. Let's see. It's about 60 pips. I mean, there was something you could have gotten in that one in about a 2-hour time period. But a little bit harder is it missed entry. We really wanted to go just a bit lower and wasn't able to get there. So I think that GDP news this week is going to be big for this pair. Again, sideways movement really on the daily is, it's looking for something. Okay, looking for something. This will have some movement this week based off the yen, but for the most part, this will be pound dominated. Going into pound dollar, you'll see it's a little bit different. It's not quite as flat. Again, this one actually did bounce, came back up again. And what did it do? It hit this. Down in this area, we were talking about, a rock and a hard place, being stuck between kind of two opposing areas. It finally got a push up, and this was news-based, right? This Thursday news-based up. Perfect setup, perfect example. It hit our 4-hour chart and then came all the way back to retrace down. So yet another parabolic retracement trade here. You guys can see it marked up over here. It actually did go and then actually went even lower. It was an easy 80 pips to the downside. Same thing, guys. Again, you're not talking pips if you're talking Nadex. These kind of big pops, they're all over the place. They happen. That's why I love currency so much, because you have so many different pairs that have the ability to pop like this. All right, now where we are right now, again, we were kind of pulling back. We were kind of trying to determine, all right, are we going to go higher, or are we going to retrace all the way back down into this kind of daily buying zone? The two zones that I was looking for was, again, this is kind of where my top side is right now, and then this is kind of where my bottom side is right now. So we're sitting kind of right at a 50% mark between those two levels. Obviously, on the lower time frame, again, there was a bit of a gap kind of play. You could have grabbed about 20, 30 pips out of it. Nothing too crazy. But this is the two zones that I'm kind of trying to figure out. All right, what do we have here? Do we really have something that's, this bottom side is probably going to eventually break soon. I think it's coming. But price needs to drive back down about 50 pips until we can get there. So we're right in the middle on that one. Just, be cautious. I don't think it's going to move a lot today. Look at dollar Swiss. Dollar Swiss was the pair of the week last week. There were so many different setups and trades off this one. I mean, look at this amount of movement on the 4-hour chart last week. Coming back up again, pop higher. This one got about halfway through we wanted to head back down. It made it about halfway through. Popped up, popped down, popped up, popped back down. I mean, literally back and forth. This pair was crazy. If you guys look at this, boom, 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 boom. Now, with that being said, it does look like it is starting to retrace back to the downside. We are below parity again. We did spend some time above 1, and we're back down to 99.40, okay? It does appear to me that it is looking to push down. It's looking to grab some orders. We did have this spike here on Friday to the downside, and not much of a retracement back again. It came about maybe about 50% of the way through. Now, it's dealing with this bit of a zone. Let me move this across just to help you with it. There. Down, so there's a bit of zone. I'd say it's probably more just a bit below this. I'd have to mark off both these zones, but that's kind of what it's contending with right now. I'd like to see a little bit of a clearance on that one before we can go lower. And just be cautious that if you look across on the daily, this little pullback area right here, this little bounce at 99.13, pretty nice level of buyer. So be cautious of that. I can see some buying stepping in, and this also kind of launching back again. If there's no geopolitical news this week, I think this will continue to fall kind of, a bit lower. All right. Looking at dollar CAD. Bam. So dollar CAD, big pop up, and I talked about this last week. We were kind of sitting at this really, I mean, again, it's a sell zone up top. We've kind of had, it's been on this ledge, it's like looking over the cliff of the Grand Canyon, but it just has not given us the entry to really get in. There's a few kind of times where it looks like it was going to move last week. This was Friday at 8:30 in the morning, and again, non-farm sent it right back to the top, and we're still kind of in that zone. If you like weekly positions, this is a potential weekly position that you could take, something a little bit farther out. It is quite a bit of an area, right? You're talking about about 107 pips from here all the way back down to kind of retrace this, this bit here all the way back down. So there is some movement in there. We just need to get some type of a signal that says, hey, listen, it's time to go short. So it's a potential short for this week. I wouldn't say jump into it now. I wouldn't, again, wait till U.S. traders come online this morning, see how they're feeling, see where the dollar is, look at the dollar index. And again, potential shorts on this one for me, looking to the downside. I don't think right now with, especially Canadian numbers, I don't think it's gonna, we have any reason unless there's something unexpected for this to pop. But if it does, I'm looking at these two zones up here, 133.70 to 133.85. So about 70 pips from where we are as kind of a, my second entry for some type of a short. All right. Looking at dollar yen. So dollar yen, I think, is going to be hinged on whatever Powell says today. As you can see, we drove all the way back down. A little bit of entries down here on the 30-minute. Again, one shot right here. Second shot here, came back down again. This gold mark is where we're looking on the daily for there to be, it's an area of buyers, okay? I said that this would be a target first, and then we'll see what we're able to do. And as you can see, we had one pullback, and really it hasn't done too much since. A little bit of movement on Friday. Again, here's your late Sunday candle, which should be right here. Okay, you guys can see when the market opened, it came up, and again, it grabbed orders, it went back down again, and it's stuck. So right now, the market doesn't know. We've had consolidation. Last week was a really great run to the downside. It really came up and it grabbed, we talked about this, it grabbed the orders on Tuesday and just shot right, spent basically the whole week just going down, okay? Then, late Friday into Sunday, we have now slowed. So I really want to see what the tone is, and I feel that Powell speaking Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday is really going to set what the market does. Be cautious. We do have buyers right below at this gold area down at 106.60. We've already shown that before, both on the daily as well as the 4-hour. So be a bit cautious there to the downside. But again, look for any type of spike up. And again, potential shorting opportunities at 107.26 and 107.77. Okay. And that's it, guys. That's all our Nadex-based pairs. All these other ones are just purely spot currency. So if you guys have any other questions about anything I said, like I said, went through things a little bit quick today. Again, having the computer break and having to rebuild the slides is always a fun scenario. Okay, so if you have any questions, whoops, let's see. Nope, it's just not going to work. There we go. Bam, there you go. Those are the ways to get in touch with me. You can use the old-fashioned email method. You can go to the website, check it out. Everything should be working right now. Some of the links I messed up again this week and trying to update it. And then again, we do nightly chart schools. If you guys want more at night, go ahead and join us over at Twitch. Keep Trading Simple, or you can check us out on Instagram. I do post a bunch of those parabolic retracements, although I have unfortunately, I had a bunch that I needed to do last week, and I'm unable to do it now because that folder is gone. So I will see you guys tomorrow morning for the Tuesday Trade Talk, and then just a reminder, I will not be here next Monday. I will actually be up in Vancouver, Canada at a wedding. So see you guys tomorrow. Good trading today. You guys all take care.